All right, so what's up, y'all? Like
What's
Justin
up?
said,
Hey.
I'm Justin.
What up, mate?
This is my third year leading at Rose, and this is one of my favorite things to do. Get to not only just come in here and doing club with y'all and hanging out with all of y'all, but also getting to get up here and talk about Jesus. And so tonight, I want to just go ahead and dive in, and I want to get real with y'all. And so I want to share with y'all one of the biggest things that I struggle with in my life. And it's been a struggle for me for most of my life, for just about as long as I can remember. And that is these feelings of self-doubt. And they all revolve around the big question of, am I good enough? And that question comes in a lot of different ways. You know, it comes in, am I good enough to be liked? Am I good enough to be loved? Am I good enough to be accepted by this group? Am I good enough to get on this sports team? Am I good enough to be a young life leader? Am I good enough for my parents, for my friends, for the person I'm interested in? Am I good enough for God? And these questions have kind of been a revolving door in my life, and I'm sure some of y'all have felt that way too. But while I was in high school, these questions left me with this empty hole in my heart, because my answer for all of them was no. No, I'm not good enough. And so because of that, I decided to put this mask on, and I started living this double life. And so on the outside, I had it all together. You know, I was Justin. I was the guy that was at every young life thing. You know, I was the guy that made pretty good grades. I was the guy that was playing varsity sports. You know, people looked at me and they said, "Man, maybe if I was a little bit more like Justin, my problems wouldn't be so bad." But on the inside, I was empty, and I was lonely, and I felt like I was all by myself. And so I decided to fill this hole with a bunch of different things. And so I started off deciding to fill it with being accepted by the popular crowd. And so I went and searched for that, and when that didn't fill this hole, I decided that I would do anything to be accepted. But that didn't fill this hole in my heart either. And so from there, I decided, okay, maybe if I'm on the varsity football team, maybe then I'll feel whole. Maybe then I'll feel complete. But that didn't work either. And so I decided that I would do whatever I could to be the best athlete I possibly could. And after I did that and spent all my time doing that, I still wasn't whole. And so after that, I turned to partying, and I turned to drinking and smoking weed, and that didn't fulfill me either. And when that didn't fulfill me, I decided, okay, maybe if I sell drugs and escape this reality that I'm in, maybe then I'll feel whole. Maybe then I'll feel complete. But I did that, and that still didn't work either. And so I said, okay, Justin, maybe if I find the perfect girl and I start dating her, maybe then I'll feel complete. Maybe then I'll feel whole. And I did that, and I still didn't feel that way. And so I said, okay, maybe if we start having sex, maybe then I'll feel complete. But that happened, and I still wasn't whole. And so I used all these different things to fill this hole in my heart. And every time I would shove something in there and then rip it back out to try to put something else in there, it took a little piece of my heart with me. And it made this hole even bigger. And I was just longing for it to be filled. And so I tell this story so that y'all can kind of get a glimpse of who I was in high school. But there's this story in the Bible that reminds me of this that I want to read. And so it's found in Mark 5. We're going to start in 22. But a little backstory of this. So Jesus, he was doing a bunch of ministry around the lake. And so he would start on this side of the lake and then go over there, do some more stuff, go over here, do some stuff, and just kept bouncing around this lake. And so we're going to pick up right when Jesus gets over one more time. And he gets off the boat, and this crowd appears. And so it says, then one of the synagogue leaders named Jairus came, and when he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet. He pleaded earnestly with him, "My little daughter is dying. Please come and put your hands on her so that she will be healed and live." So Jesus went with him. So what happens here is Jesus gets out of the boat, and there's a crowd already around him. And this dude, Jairus, comes up from the middle of the crowd, and he says, Jesus, my daughter is sick. And so Jairus was a synagogue leader. And if you don't know what that is, he is just this really important dude. And he kind of reminds me of how I was trying to be on the outside when I was in high school. He was this dude that had it all together. He was this dude that people looked at and they said, maybe I should be a little bit more like Jairus. See, but Jairus, his big problem is his daughter is sick. And he's tried everything. He's tried this, he's tried that, and none of it works. And his daughter is still sick, and she's dying. And he's at the end of his rope, and he hears about Jesus, and he says, wait, this Jesus guy can heal people. Maybe he'll heal my daughter. I need to go find Jesus. And so Jairus goes, and he finds Jesus, and he asks to heal his daughter. And Jesus says yes. And so the story continues here, and it says, a large crowd followed and pressed around him. And a woman was there who had been subject to bleeding for 12 years. She had suffered a great deal under the care of many doctors and had spent all she had. Yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came up behind him in the crowd and touched his cloak, because she thought, if I just touch his clothes, I will be healed. Immediately her bleeding stopped, and she felt in her body that she was freed from her suffering. At once, Jesus realized that power had gone out from him. He turned around in the crowd and asked, who touched my clothes? You see the people crowding around you, his disciples answered, and yet you can ask, who touched me? But Jesus kept looking around to see who had done it. Then the woman, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell at his feet, and trembling with fear, told him the whole truth. He said to her, daughter, your faith has healed you. Go in peace and be freed from your suffering. So this woman comes, and imagine that Jesus is in the middle of this cloakroom, right? And we're all singing a song, we're jumping around, and that's where Jesus is. And this woman comes up, and she just touches the edge of his cloak. Because just like Jairus, she had a problem. See, but her problem was she had been bleeding for 12 years. And she had tried this, and she had tried that, and she had tried every possible thing she could have done to fill this emptiness, to heal her sickness, to cure her brokenness. But it says, yet instead of getting better, she grew worse. You see, the bleeding woman reminds me of who I was on the inside in high school. She reminds me that, I used all these things to try and get better, but really I just grew worse. And so she comes up to Jesus and she says, but this Jesus guy, he can heal people. Maybe he'll do that for me. And he comes up and she touches the edge of Jesus' cloak, and instantly she's healed. Right? And Jesus says, who touched me? And his disciples, which are just his closest friends, are like, what are you talking about? There's so many people around you, and you're asking who touched you? Like, everyone touched you. We're in a mosh pit. Like, everyone touched you. And he says, no, this is different. Someone touched me. And the bleeding woman realized what had happened, and she knew that Jesus knew. So she comes and she falls at his feet, and she says, Jesus, it was me. I touched you. She explained her situation. She said, I have this brokenness inside me. I have this hurting, this emptiness, and I need something to fix it. And I've tried this, and I've tried that, and I don't know what to do. But Jesus, I need your help. And you see, she was expecting Jesus to yell at her, or to tell her that it wasn't okay, or to go away and never come back. But Jesus said, daughter, your faith has healed you. He says, daughter, you're free. He says, go in peace. This is your new life. Leave all that behind. This is your new life. Your brokenness is gone. Your sickness is gone. I have that. So after this, it says, while Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said.
I don't get it.
Why bother the teacher anymore?
Check the web for.
It says, while Jesus was still speaking, some people came from the house of Jairus, the synagogue leader. Your daughter is dead, they said. Why bother the teacher anymore? Overhearing what they said, Jesus told him, don't be afraid, just believe. So after Jesus heals the bleeding woman, some people from Jairus' house come and they say, I'm sorry, Jairus. It took too long. Your daughter's dead. Right? Imagine what Jairus did. Like, I just imagine him falling to his knees and just screaming. Like, he went and he found Jesus. He did what he was supposed to, and then he's going, and Jesus stops for this woman that people don't care about, this bleeding woman that has been bleeding for 12 years, that she's been sick for 12 years. Why is he stopping for her? Why isn't he helping the important person over here? But he's Jairus. He has it all together. But Jesus took the time out to help the bleeding woman too. And so after this, he says, don't be afraid, just believe. I got it. And so they go to his house. They go to Jairus' house, and there's people screaming and wailing and crying and sobbing. And Jesus says, why are you guys sad? The child's not dead, but she's asleep. And they're like, what are you talking about, Jesus? She's not asleep, she's dead. And Jesus walks up next to her and he says, come on, honey, it's time to get up. He says, all right, the nap's over. Let's get up now. And she sits up and she gets out. And they're in shock because Jesus just raised this little girl from the dead, right? But they thought she was dead, and Jesus stepped into that situation. And so Jesus comes, and Jairus comes to him. And Jairus is an important person, and Jesus helps him, right? And then the bleeding woman comes, and Jesus helps her too. And it doesn't matter if you're Jairus, or if you're the bleeding woman in this story, or if you're both. But Jesus came, and he healed all of their brokenness. He filled their need, right? He filled their emptiness. He cured their sickness. But both of them came, and they fell at the feet of Jesus, and they said, Jesus, I need your help. They said, Jesus, I can't do this on my own anymore. I did this, and I did that, and I did this, and I did that, and I did all of it, and I can't do it anymore. God, I need your help. Because I can't do it on my own. I need you to help with this, right? And Jesus reaches down and he says, okay, I'll help. See, when I was in high school, I had to wake up every single morning and ask myself the question, am I good enough? And every single morning, the answer was no. See, but when I started following Jesus, all that changed. Because I still asked that same question. But instead of me hearing no from myself, I heard from Jesus, yes, you are good enough. Yes, Justin, you are good enough. Yes, Ethan, you're good enough. Yes, Zesty, you're good enough. Yes, Lily, you're good enough. Yes, Joey, you're good enough. Yes, Anna, you're good enough. We heard all of that from Jesus. Jesus said that to me, and he says that to you guys too, right? And the reason why we're good enough is simply because he loves us. You may not think that you're empty. You may not think that you have this hole in your heart. You may say, my life is just fine without Jesus, right? And I'm gonna call BS on that. I'm gonna say that you may think life is all good and well without Jesus, but it's not. Look at your life. Where are you spending your time? Where are you giving all your love? Where are you giving all your passion? Because I bet you that's the thing that you're using to fill you up. And you see, when that thing is gone, you'll feel that empty hole, right? Because all of it's going to leave. Jesus is the only thing that isn't going to leave us. He's the only thing that's going to fill that empty hole that we have inside of us. I have a little thing that I want to show y'all. But we all have this God-shaped hole inside of our heart, right? And so we take it, and I told y'all what I filled mine with. But we take it and we fill it with things. Maybe it's sports. Maybe it's relationships. Maybe it's acceptance from our peers. Maybe the approval of our parents, or grades, or school, or social media, or partying, or whatever it is that we fill it with, it's all the same. Because in the end, it just leaves us empty again. And it just pours right out of our hearts. But God, he comes in and he perfectly fills that hole in our hearts. So I want to leave y'all with the questions. What are you using to fill your emptiness? And is it really satisfying you? I'm going to pray, and then we're going to head to Chick-fil-A.